searched you to see whether you are armed," one of the tribesmen said. The alchemist dismounted slowly, and the boy did the same. "Why are you carrying money?" asked the tribesman. When he had searched the boy's bag, "I needed to get to the pyramids," he said. The tribesmen who were searching the alchemist's belongings found a small crystal flask filled with a liquid and a yellow glass egg that was slightly larger than a chicken's egg. "What are these things?" he asked. "That's the philosopher's stone and the elixir of life. It's the masterwork of the alchemists. Whoever swallows that elixir will never be sick again. And a fragment from that stone turns any metal into gold." The Arabs laughed at him, and the alchemist laughed along. They thought his answer was amusing, and they allowed the boy and the alchemist to proceed with all of their belongings. "Are you crazy?" the boy asked the alchemist when they had to move on. "What did you do that for?" "To show you one of life's simple lessons," the alchemist answered. "When you possess great treasures within you and try to tell others of them, seldom are you believed." They continued across the desert. With every day that passed, the boy's heart became more and more silent. It no longer wanted to know about things of the past or future. It was content simply to contemplate the desert and to drink with the boy from the soul of the world. The boy and his heart had become friends, and neither was capable now of betraying the other. When his heart spoke to him, it was to provide a stimulus to the boy and to give him strength, because the days of silence there in the desert were wearisome. His heart told the boy what his strongest qualities were: his courage in having given up his sheep and in trying to live out his destiny, his enthusiasm during the time he had worked at the crystal shop. And his heart told him something else that the boy had never noticed. It told the boy of dangers that had threatened him, but that he had never perceived. His heart said that one time it had hidden the rifle the boy had taken from his father, because of the possibility that the boy might wound himself. And it reminded the boy of the day when he had been ill and vomiting out in the fields, after which he had fallen into a deep sleep. There had been 2 thieves farther ahead who were planning to steal the boy's sheep and murder him. But since the boy hadn't passed by, they had decided to move on, thinking that he had changed his route. "Does a man's heart always help him?" the boy asked the alchemist. "Mostly just the hearts of those who were trying to realize their destinies. But they do help children, young gods, and the elderly too." "Does that mean that I will never run into danger?" "It means only that the heart does what it can," the alchemist said. One afternoon, they passed by the encampment of one of the tribes. At each corner of the camp were Arabs clad in beautiful white robes, with arms at the ready. The men were smoking their hookahs and trading stories from the battlefield. No one paid any attention to the 2 travelers. "There's no danger," the boy said. When they had moved on past the encampment, the alchemist sounded angry. "Trust in your heart, but never forget that you are in the desert. When men are at war with another, the soul of the world can hear the screams of battle. No one fails to suffer the consequences of everything under the sun." "All things are one," the boy thought. And then, as if the desert wanted to demonstrate that the alchemist was right, 2 horsemen appeared from behind the travelers. "You can't go any further," one of them said. "You're in the area where the tribes are at war." "I'm not going very far," the alchemist answered, looking straight into the eyes of the horsemen. They were silent for a moment, and then agreed that the boy and the alchemist could move along. The boy watched the exchange with fascination. "You dominated those horsemen with the way you looked at them," he said. "Your eyes show the strength of your soul," answered the alchemist. "That's true," the boy thought. He had noticed that, in the midst of the multitude of armed men back at the encampment, there had been one who stared fixedly at the 2. He had been so far away that his face wasn't even visible, but the boy was certain that he had been looking at them. Finally, when they had crossed the mountain range that extended along the entire horizon, the alchemist said that they were only 2 days from the pyramids. "If we are going to go our separate ways soon," the boy said, "then teach me about alchemy." "You already know about alchemy. It's about penetrating to the soul of the world and discovering the treasure that has been reserved for you." "No, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about transforming lead into gold." The alchemist felt as silent as the desert and answered the boy only after he had stopped to eat. "Everything in the universe evolved," he said, "and for wise men, gold is the metal that evolved the furthest. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. I just know that the tradition is always right. Men have never understood the words of the wise. So gold, instead of being seen as a symbol of evolution, became the basis for conflict. There are many languages spoken by things," the boy said. "There was a time when for me, a camel's whinnying was nothing more than whinnying, when it became a signal of danger, and finally, it became just a whinny again." But then he stopped. The alchemist probably already knew all that. "I've known true alchemists," the alchemist continued. "They locked themselves in the laboratories and tried to evolve as gold had, and they found the philosopher's stone because they understood that when something evolves, everything around that thing evolves as well. Others stumble upon the stone by accident. They already had the gift, and their souls were readier for such things than the souls of others. But they don't count. They're quite rare. And then there were the others who were interested only in gold. They never found the secret. They forgot that lead, copper, and iron had their own destinies to fulfill. And anyone who interferes with the destiny of another thing never will discover his own." The alchemist's words echoed out like a curse. He reached over and picked up a shell from the ground. "This desert was once a sea," he said. "I noticed that," the boy answered. The alchemist told the boy to place the shell over his ear. He had done that many times when he was a child and had heard the sound of the sea. The sea has lived on this shell, because that's its destiny, and it will never cease doing so until the desert is once again covered by water. mounted their horses and rode out in the direction of the pyramids of Egypt. The sun was setting when the boy's heart sounded a danger signal. They were surrounded by gigantic dunes, and the boy looked at the alchemist to see whether he had sensed anything, but he appeared to be unaware of any danger. 5 minutes later, the boy saw 2 horsemen awaiting ahead of them. Because he could say anything to the damn alchemist, the 2 horsemen had become 10, and then 100. And then they were everywhere in the dunes. They were tribesmen dressed in blue, with black rings surrounding their turbans. Their faces were hidden behind blue veils, with only their eyes showing. Even from a distance, their eyes conveyed the strength of their souls, and their eyes spoke of death. The 2 were taken to a nearby military camp. The soldiers shoved the boy and the alchemist into a tent, where the chief was holding a meeting with his staff. "These are the spies," said one of the men. "Just traveler," the alchemist answered. "You were seen at the enemy camp 3 days ago, and you were talking with one of the troops there." "I'm just a man who wanders the desert and knows the star," said the alchemist. "I have no information about troops and about the movement of the tribes. I was simply acting as a guide for my friend here." "Who's your friend?" the chief asked. "An alchemist," said the alchemist. "He understands the forces of nature, and he wants to show you his extraordinary powers." The boy listened quietly and fearfully. "What is a foreigner doing here?" asked another of the men. "He has brought money to give to your tribe," said the alchemist, before the boy could say a word. And seizing the boy's bag, the alchemist gave the gold coins to the chief. The Arab accepted them without a word. There was enough there to buy a lot of weapons. "What is an alchemist?" he asked finally. "It's the man who understands nature and the world. If he wanted to, he could destroy this camp just with the force of the wind." The men laughed. They were used to the ravages of war and knew that the wind could not deliver them a fatal blow. Yet, each felt his heart beat a bit faster. They were men of the desert, and they were fearful of sorcerers. "I want to see him do it," ended the chief. "He needs 3 days," answered the alchemist. "He's going to transform himself into the wind, just to demonstrate his powers. If he can't do so, we humbly offer you our lives, for the honor of the tribes." "You can't offer me something that is already mine," the chief said arrogantly, but he granted the travelers 3 days. The boy was shaking with fear, but the alchemist helped him out of the tent. "Don't let them see you are afraid," the alchemist said. They are brave men, and they despise cowards." But the boy couldn't even speak. He was able to do so only after he had walked through the center of the camp. There was no need to imprison them. The Arabs simply confiscated their horses. So once again, the world had demonstrated its many languages. The desert only moments ago had been endless and free, and now it was an impenetrable wall. "You gave them everything I had," the boy said. "Everything I've saved in my entire life." "Well, what good would it be to you if you have to die?" The alchemist answered. "Your money saved it for 3 days. It's not often that money saves a person's life." But the boy was too frightened to listen to words of wisdom. He had no idea how he's going to transform himself into the wind. He wasn't an alchemist. The alchemist asked one of the soldiers for some tea and poured some to the boy's wrists. A wave of relief rushed over him. The alchemist muttered some words and the boy didn't understand. "Don't give in to your fears," said the alchemist in a strangely gentle voice. you do, you won't be able to talk to your heart. But I have no idea how to turn myself into the wind. If a person is living out his destiny, he knows everything he needs to know. There's only one thing that makes the dream impossible to achieve. It's the fear of failure. I'm not afraid of falling. It's just that I don't know how to turn myself into the wind. Well, you will have to learn. Your life depends on it. But what if I can't? Then you'll die in the midst of trying to realize the destiny. That's a lot better than dying like millions of other people who never even knew what their destinies were. But don't worry, the Alchemist continued. Usually the threat of death makes people a lot more aware of their lives. The first day passed. There was a major battle nearby. A number of wounded were brought back to the camp. The dead soldiers were replaced by others, and life went on. Death doesn't change anything, the boy thought. You could have died later on, the soldier said to the body of one of his companions. You could have died after peace had been declared, but in any case, you were going to die. At the end of the day, the boy went looking for the alchemist, who had taken his falcon out into the desert. I still have no idea how to turn myself into the wind, the boy repeated. Remember what I told you. The world is only the visible aspect of God, and that what alchemy does is to bring spiritual perfection into contact with the material plane. What are you doing? Feeding my falcon. If I'm not able to turn myself into the wind, we're going to die, the boy said. Why feed your falcon? You're the only one who may die, the alchemist said. I already know how to turn myself into the wind. On the second day, the boy climbed to the top of a cliff near the camp. The sentinels allowed him to go, and they had already heard the sorcerer who could turn himself into the wind. And they didn't want to go near him. In any case, the desert was impassable. He spent the entire afternoon of the second day looking out over the desert, listening to his heart. The boy knew the desert sensed his fear. They both spoke the same language. On the third day, the chief met with his officers. He called the alchemist to the meeting and said, Let's go see the boy who turns himself into the wind. Let's, the alchemist answered. The boy took them to the cliffs where he had been on the previous day. He had them all to be seated. It's going to take a while, the boy said. We ain't no hurry, the chief answered. We are men of the desert. The boy looked out at the horizon. There were mountains in the distance, and there were dunes, rocks, and plants that insisted on living where survival seemed impossible. There was the desert that he had wandered for so many months. Despite all that time, he knew only a small part of it. Within that small part, he had found an Englishman, caravans, tribal wars, an oasis with 50,000 palm trees and 300 wells. What do you want here today? The desert asked him. Didn't you spend enough time looking at me yesterday? Somewhere you are holding the person I love, the boy said. So when I look out over your sands, I am also looking at her. I want to return to her, and I need your help so that I can turn myself into the wind. What is love? The desert asks. Love is the falcon's flight over your sands, because for him you are a green field from which he always returns with game. He knows your rocks, your dunes, your mountains, and you are generous to him. The falcon's beak carries bits of me, myself, the desert said. For years, I care for his game, feeding it with a little water that I have, and then I show him where the game is. And one day, as I enjoy the fact that this game and eventually, man will nourish your sands, where the game will once again flourish. That's how the world goes. So, is that what love is? Yes, that's what love is. It's what makes the game become the fun coin. The fun coin become man, and man in turn the desert. It's what turns lead into gold and makes the gold return to the earth. I don't understand what you're talking about, the desert said. But you can at least understand that somewhere in your sands, there's a woman waiting for me. And that's why I have to turn myself into the wind. The desert didn't answer him for a few moments. Then it told him, I'll give you my sands to have the wind to blow. But alone, I can't do anything. You have to ask for help from the wind. A breeze began to blow. The tribesmen watched the boy from distance, talking among themselves in a language that the boy couldn't understand. The alchemist smiled. The wind approached the boy and touched his face. It knew of the boy's talk with the desert, because the winds know everything. They blow across the world without birthplace, no place to die. Help me, the boy said. One day, you carry the voice of my loved one to me. Who taught you to speak the language of the desert and the wind? My heart, the boy answered. The wind has many names. In that part of the world, it was called the Sirocco, because it brought moisture from the oceans to the east. In the distant land the boy came from, they called the Levanta, because they believed that it brought with it the sands of the desert and the screams of the Moorish wars. Perhaps in the places beyond the pastures where the sheep lived, men thought that the wind came from Andalusia, but actually the wind came from no place at all. Nor did it go to any place. That's why it was stronger than the desert. Someone might one day plant trees in the desert, or even raise sheep there, but never would they harness the wind. You can't be the wind said, with two very different things. That's not true, the boy said. I learned the alchemist's secrets in my travels. I've inside me the winds, the deserts, the oceans, the stars, and everything created in the universe. We were all made by the same hand, and we have the same soul. I want to be like you, able to reach every corner of the world, cross the seas, blow away the sands that cover my treasure, and carry the voice of the women I love. I heard that. I heard what you were talking about the other day with the alchemist, the wind said. He said that everything has its own destiny, but people can turn themselves into the wind. Just teach me to be the wind for a few moments, the boy said, so you and I can talk about the limitless of possibilities of people and the winds. The wind's curiosity was aroused, something that had never happened before. It wanted to talk about those things, but it didn't know how to turn a man into the wind. And look how many things the wind already knew how to do. It created deserts, sand sheets, felled entire forests, and blew through cities filled with music and strange noise. It felt like it had no limits. Yet, here was a boy saying that there were other things the wind should be able to do. This is what we call love, the boy said, seeing that the wind was closer to granting what he requested. When you are loved, you can do anything in creation. When you are loved, there's no need at all to understand what's happening, because everything happens within you, and even men can turn themselves into the wind, as long as the wind helps, of course. The wind was a proud being. It was becoming irritated with what the boy was saying. It commenced to blow harder, raising the desert sand. But finally, It had to recognize that even making its way around the world, it didn't know how to turn a man into the wind, and it knew nothing about love. In my travels around the world, I've often seen people speaking of love and looking forward to heavens. The wind said, furious at having to acknowledge its own limitations. Maybe it's better to ask heaven. Well then, help me do that, the boy said. Fill this place with a sandstorm so strong that it blocks out the sun. Then I can look to heaven without blinding myself. So the wind blew with all its strength, and the sky was filled with sand. The sun was turned into a golden disk. At the camp, it was difficult to see anything. The men of the desert were already familiar with that wind. They called it the simum. It was worse than the storm at sea. Their horses cried down, and all their weapons were filled with sand. On the heights, one of the commanders turned to the chief and said, maybe we had better end this. They could barely see the boy. Their faces were covered with the blue clots, and their eyes showed fear. Let's stop this, another commander said. I want to see the greatness in Allah. The chief said, with respect, I want to see how a man turns himself into the wind. But he made a mental note of the names of the two men who had expressed their fear. As soon as the wind stopped, he was going to remove them from their commands, because true men of the desert are not afraid. The wind told me that you know about love, the boy said to the sun. If you know about love, you must also know about the soul of the world, because it's made of love. From where I am, the sun said, I can see the soul of the world. It communicates with my soul, and together we cause the plants to grow in the tree to seek out shade. From where I am, and I am a long way from the earth, I learned how to love. I know that if I came even a bit closer to the earth, everything there would die, and the soul of the world no longer exists. So we contemplate each other, we want each other, I give it life and warmth, it gives me my reason for living. So you know about love, the boy said, and I know the soul of the world, because we have talked at great length to each other during this endless trip through the universe. It tells me that its greatest problem is that, up until now, only the minerals and vegetables understand that all things are one. But there's no need for iron to be the same as copper, and copper the same as gold. Each performs its own exact function and a unique being. And everything would be a symphony of peace if the hand that wrote all this had stopped on the fifth day of creation. But there was a sixth day, the boy went on, the sun went on. You are wise, because you observe everything from a distance, the boy said. But you don't know about love. If there hadn't been a sixth day, man would not exist. Copper will always be just copper, lead just lead. That's true. It's true that everything has its destiny. But one day the destiny will be realized. So each thing has to transform itself into something better, and to acquire a new destiny until someday the soul of the world becomes one thing only. The sun thought about that and decided to shine more brightly. The wind, which was enjoying the conversation, started to blow with greater force, so that the sun would not blind the boy. This is why alchemy exists, the boy said, so that everyone will search for his treasure, find it, and then want to be better than he was in his former life. Lead replaced role until the world had no further need for lead, and then lead will have to turn itself into gold. That's what alchemists do. They show that when we strive to become is static like the desert, nor is it love to roam like the world like the wind. It's not love to see everything from a distance like you do. Love is the force that transforms and improves the soul of the world. When I first reached through to it, I thought the soul of the world was perfect. But later, I could see that it was like other aspects of creation, and had its own passions and wars. It is we who nourish the soul of the world, and the world we live in will be either better or worse, depending on whether we become better or worse. That's where the power of love comes in, because when we love, we always strive to become better than we are. So, what do you want of me? The sun asks. I want you to help me turn myself into the wind, the boy answered. Nature knows me as the wisest being in creation, the sun said, but I don't know how to turn you into the wind. Then, whom should I ask? The sun thought for a minute. The wind was listening closely, wanted to tell every corner of the world that the sun's wisdom has its limitations, that it was unable to deal with this boy who spoke the language of the world. Speak to the hand that wrote all, said the sun. The wind screamed with delight and blew harder than ever. The tents were being blown from their ties to the earth, and the animals were being freed from their tethers. On the cliff, the men clutched at each other as they sought to keep them from being blown away. The boy turned to the hand that wrote all. As he did so, he sensed that the universe has fallen silent, and he decided not to speak. A current of love rushed from his heart, and the boy began to pray. It was a prayer that he had never said before, because it was a prayer without words of please. His prayer didn't give thanks to his sheep having found new pastures. It didn't ask the boy be able to sell more crystal. It didn't beseech that the women he had met continued to await his return. In the silence, the boy understood that the desert, the wind, and the sun were also trying to understand the signs written by the hand, and were seeking to follow their paths, to understand what had been written on a single emerald. He saw that almonds were scattered throughout the earth and space, and there was no reason or significance attached to their appearance, but that the hand had a reason for all of this, and that only the hand could perform miracles and transform the sea into a desert, or a man into the wind, because only the hand understood that it was a larger design that had moved the universe to the point at which 6 days of creation had evolved into a masterwork. The boy reached through the soul of the world and saw that it was part of the soul of God, and he saw that the soul of God was his own soul, and that he, a boy, could perform miracles. The simum blew that day as it had never blown before. For generations thereafter, the Arabs recounted the legend of a boy who had turned himself into the wind, almost destroying a military camp in defiance of the most powerful chief in the desert. When the simum ceased to blow, everyone looked to the place where the boy had been, but it was no longer there. He was standing next to the sand-covered sentinel on the far side of the camp. The man was terrified as sorcerer, but there were two people who were smiling. The alchemist, because he had found his perfect disciple, and the chief, because that disciple had understood the glory of God. The following day, the general bade the boy and the alchemist farewell, provided him with an escort party to accompany them as far as they chose. They rode for the entire day. Toward the end of the afternoon, they came upon a Coptic monastery. The alchemist dismounted and told the escorts they could return to the camp. From here on, you will be alone, the alchemist said. You are only 3 hours from the pyramids." "Thank you," said the boy. "You taught me the language of the world. I only evoked what you already knew." The alchemist knocks on the gate of the monastery. A monk dressed in black came to the gates. They spoke for a few minutes in the Coptic tongue, and the alchemist bade the boy enter. "I asked him to let me use the kitchen for a while," the alchemist smiled. They went to the kitchen at the back of the monastery. The alchemist lighted the fire, and the monk brought him some lead, which the alchemist placed in an iron pan. When the lead had become liquid, the alchemist took from his pouch a strange yellow egg. He scraped from a silver as thin as hair, wrapped in a wax, and added it to the pan in which the lead had melted. The mixture took on a reddish color, almost color of blood. The alchemist removed the pan from the fire and set it aside to cool. So, as he did, he talked with the monk about the tribal wars. "I think they're going to last for a long time," said the monk. The monk was irritated. The caravans had been stopped at Giza for some time, waiting for the wars to end. "The gods will be done," the monk said. "Exactly," answered the alchemist. When the pan had cooled, the monk and the boy looked at it, dazzled. Lead had dried into the shape of the pan, but it was no longer lead, it was gold. "Will I learn to do that someday?" the boy asked. "This was my destiny, not yours," the alchemist answered. "But I want to show you that it was possible." They returned to the gates of the monastery. There, the alchemist separated the disc into 12 parts. "This is for you," he said, holding one of the parts out to the monk. "It is for your generosity to the pilgrims. But this payment goes well beyond my generosity," the monk responded. "Don't say that again. Life might be listening and give you less the next time." The alchemist turned to the boy. "This is for you, to make up for what you have to give to the general." The boy was about to say that it was much more than he had given the general, but he kept quiet because he had heard what the alchemist said to the monk. "And this is for me," said the alchemist, keeping one of the parts, "because I have to return to the desert where there are tribal wars." He took his 4th part and handed it to the monk. "This is for the boy, if he ever needs it. But I'm going to go in search of my treasure.